I'm always support my gay friends. I'm always support my transgender friends.
Now we got NBA legend Charles Barkley demanding the WNBA do what's right. The whole executive board need to confirm that there is no man playing in this league.
Stuzzy, WNBA Danny Z writes, define women based on biological sex? If so, say it. It's self-identification insignificant? If you listen to what Sophie Cunningham said, she's saying what the WNBA bylaw says, which is, hey, look, women should play, not have to play against men.
The WNBA is currently locked in a fiery battle for its identity, and while generational phenomenon Caitlin Clark continues to lift the entire sport with sellout crowds and historic television ratings, NBA legend Charles Barkley just blew the lid off a quiet agenda that the league office desperately tried to sweep under the rug.
I always support the gay community. I always support the transgender community. I'm always support my gay friends. I'm always support my transgender friends. But under no circumstances do I think men should play against women.
Speaking out with the kind of unvarnished honesty that made him a Hall of Famer and broadcast icon, Barkley publicly scorched WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert and NBA Commissioner Adam Silver for their complete failure to defend biological female athletes. Barkley made it crystal clear that while he has always voiced love and respect for the LGBTQ and transgender communities, under no circumstances should biological men ever be allowed to compete against women in professional sport.
Only players who are women are eligible to play in the WNBA, and you would think that would be enough, right?
It's called the WNBA. We're not going to discuss this. We're not going to turn it loose to the jackasses on the internet. We're going to say the WNBA is for women, and we're not going to discuss it again.
He called out the league leadership for their alarming silence, arguing that Engelbert and Silver should have stepped up weeks ago to issue a firm, definitive statement that the WNBA is strictly for women rather than leaving the narrative open to internet chaos, bad faith actors, and administrative confusion.
Stuzzy, WNBA Danny Z writes, define women based on biological sex? If so, say it. It's self-identification insignificant?
Because there is a loophole within their clause to where men could play in the league. Why do they have that gap there? This league has been around for 30-some years, bro.
Barkley's scathing rebuke exposed the absolute panic gripping the WNBA front office, which has found itself completely trapped by its own ambiguous rules. When former NBA players Enes Kanter Freedom and Royce White announced their intentions to enter the WNBA draft, they were not just trolling, they were executing a brilliant maneuver to expose a massive legal vulnerability inside the league's collective bargaining agreement.
The WNBA figureheads were getting together to see if they could define the word woman in their rules, thus eliminating the transgender discussion entirely.
Kanter and White have served their purpose, but it leaves open the question, how are you defining a woman?
Who is a man already possibly playing in the league? That is going to destroy this league if it comes out.
Article 23, Section 1A of the CBA flatly states that only players who are women are eligible to compete, yet the league completely omitted any biological definition of what a woman actually is. Instead of stepping up to clear the air with standard biological guidelines like the World Tennis Association or the Olympic Committee, WNBA executives released anonymous leaks dismissing the claims as publicity stunts while refusing to answer direct media inquiries about their actual criteria.
The WNBA has created this situation. They have refused to say women should only be playing in the Women's National Basketball Association.
Enes Kanter Freedom and our friend Royce White will not be eligible for the WNBA draft. What? But if that's their decision, why have they not told anybody?
This cowardly silence has left the door wide open for ideological experiments that fundamentally undermine the hard-fought progress of women's sports. The consequences of this administrative ambiguity are not just theoretical, they are manifesting as direct hostility toward the players who have the courage to speak up.
If the league has now determined that two males who say they identify as women do not satisfy the eligibility standard, it should be able to explain the standard it used. And the WNBA did not respond. All right, as of Tuesday, we are still waiting for word.
At the very center of this storm is Indiana Fever guard Sophie Cunningham, who has suddenly found a massive target on her back simply for standing up for biological reality. When Cunningham voiced her common sense opinion that female spaces and sports must be preserved for biological women, she expected basic respect for a viewpoint shared by the vast majority of sports fans across America.
If you listen to what Sophie Cunningham Cunningham said, she's saying what the WNBA bylaw says, which is, hey, look, women should play, not have to play against men.
All because she said she doesn't think that men belong in women's spaces.
Instead, her comments triggered a furious, coordinated pushback from radical media commentators, rival coaches, and hyper-political factions who seem far more interested in virtue signaling than protecting their own league. Rather than supporting a player who defended female athletics, elements within and around the league have aggressively sought to vilify Cunningham, turning her into a targeted outcast during games and creating an incredibly toxic environment. What makes this campaign against Sophie Cunningham so absurd is the sheer contrast between her dedication on the floor and the antics of her loudest critics. While media figures launch sharp attacks against her character, Cunningham has remained a fierce physical enforcer on the hardwood.
Sophie Cunningham has been a class act this entire time. She has, yes, stood by her statements, which is important, but she has continually spoken with decency and she's so level-headed when she's asked further questions about her opinions. At the beginning of August, trans protesters flooded one of Indiana Fever's games to protest Cunningham. They waved trans flags and booed when she stepped out onto the court,
routinely putting her body on the line to defend Caitlin Clark from dirty fouls, hard hits, and hostile opponents who resent Clark's meteoric rise.
Counter Freedom said that he put his hands up to celebrate a shot by Sophie Cunningham, and that's when Natasha Cloud decided to go after him.
Cloud was the aggressor. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
She was cussing him out and, moving towards him had to be restrained.
But as the ideological pressure mounts and activist groups turn up the heat at arenas across the country, it is becoming undeniably clear that this agenda is not just about policy. It is about punishing anyone who dares to stand in the way of radical reform. The tension has reached an absolute boiling point, leaving fans wondering just how far league figures will go to silence biological defenders, and the escalating tactics being used against Cunningham are about to shock the entire basketball world.
After being ejected, he also said that he is supporting women, and that's the reason that they're kicking him out. The lieutenant governor of Indiana tweeted, saying that he was appalled by what happened during the Indiana Fever game last night.
The targeted hostility directed at Sophie Cunningham has escalated far beyond verbal debates, revealing a desperate attempt by progressive activists and league enablers to intimidate anyone who supports traditional female athletics. In one of the most bizarre displays in recent sports history, the expansion franchise Toronto Tempo actually unveiled a non-binary snapping turtle mascot named Dez, complete with explicit social media backstories, in what fans quickly recognized as a passive-aggressive swipe aimed squarely at Cunningham's traditional stance. But the retaliation did not stop at corporate mascots. It extended directly to the fans in the stands. During a game between the Indiana Fever and the Atlanta Dream, a mother and daughter who paid over $1,000 for courtside seats to support Cunningham were confronted by stadium security and forced to zip up their jackets to cover t-shirts that simply displayed basic XX and XY biological graphics.
The Chicago coach said that they all embrace Cloud as someone that protects the team and protects people that need to be protected.
Why do you think this is so difficult for the WNBA to simply stop this and define what a woman is, whatever their view is? Right, wrong, happy, sad? People are going to bitch no matter what.
We're going to say the WNBA is for women, and we're not going to discuss it again. I'm disappointed at Adam and Kathy.
In a shocking display of double standards, the arena's Jumbotron simultaneously highlighted other fans wearing pro-trans political apparel, proving that venue organizers were actively censoring biological truth while celebrating progressive rhetoric on the big screen. This unhinged hostility reached a fever pitch during a recent matchup between the Chicago Sky and the Indiana Fever, where Chicago guard Natasha Cloud completely lost her composure on the court. After Sophie Cunningham knocked down a smooth jumper, former NBA player Ines Kanter-Freedom, sitting courtside wearing a shirt defining a woman as an adult human female, simply raised his hands to cheer for the basket.
The crowd was absolutely amazing, and I think that's what sports is all about. You're going to get boos, you're going to get cheers, but I do think that that's something America can get better at, is maybe not always agreeing with people, but also just showing peace and love. It's okay to disagree.
Cloud took immediate offense, marching to the sideline during the very next play to to launch a barrage of aggressive profanities and screaming insults directly at Cantor right in front of families and young children. Instead of issuing a technical foul to the player who verbally attacked a fan, arena security escorted Cantor out of the building, once again demonstrating that the league would rather penalize paying spectators than hold aggressive players accountable. As sports host Will Kane and former NBA star Jason Williams noted, these circus moments are exposing the sheer absurdity of the WNBA's refusal to define basic biology, forcing the league into embarrassing corners of its own making. Through all of this chaos, the undeniable reality remains that the WNBA's financial survival depends on the massive audience brought in by Caitlin Clark, not the ideological crusades of its loudest activists.
But lots of people continue to absolutely hate her and have been spending all their time protesting her because reasons.
Trans lives matter!
Similar demonstrations have also been popping up over the last few weeks, with women declaring that they are tired of being silenced.
Clark has completely transformed the economics of women's basketball, breaking attendance records, setting historic viewership metrics, and bringing millions of brand new fans into a league that lost money for nearly 3 decades. These fans tune in to watch world-class athletic excellence, deep logo three-pointers, and high-stakes basketball competition, not to watch biological reality get rewritten or watch courageous players like Sophie Cunningham get vilified for protecting women's spaces. As Charles Barkley brilliantly pointed out, the WNBA is burning through its window of public goodwill at a time when major sports leagues like the NFL and NBA dominate sports media, and alienating mainstream America with far-left posturing is a fast track to financial disaster.
A mother and daughter wore the brand XXXY apparel. They allegedly also paid $1,000 per ticket to see Sophie Cunningham play. The pair were asked to cover their shirts or leave the stadium.
Charles Barkley was absolutely right to call out the WNBA agenda, and Sophie Cunningham has been vindicated every single step of the way. The WNBA front office must wake up, drop the cowardly silence, and formally affirm that the league is reserved exclusively for biological women. It is time to protect true female athletes, preserve fair competition, and let generational talents like Caitlin Clark continue to elevate the game of basketball without the cloud of ideological warfare. That is the only path forward if this league wants to keep the millions of new fans who have fallen in love with the sport.
This woman did an interview where she said that trans kids belong, and basically said in so many words that this entire thing is political.
Caitlin Clark saved. Little history. They fought Caitlin Clark tooth and nail. She decided to wear a trans kids belong.
What do you think about Charles Barkley calling out WNBA leadership? And do you agree that Sophie Cunningham was right all along? Sound off with your thoughts in the comment section below. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more unfiltered commentary, and share this video to keep the truth alive.